This is a coroner's report book, and it's a record of cases brought before the coroner's office and investigated by that office. And every once in a while one comes up with a gem which you might say is mind-blowing.
Right.
For example, take a look at this one, which is the record of a mulatto woman named, it's this one, sorry. A mulatto woman named Isabella, who's being brought before the coroner's court because her son, her infant son, is found dead with a piece of twine wrapped around his neck. So clearly murdered, and she, of course, is being investigated for murder.
Right. Well, here is a heart-rending document from the 1740s in New York City. The coroner's court would have been brought together every time there was an unexplained death in the city or a suspicious death. And in this document, which covers about 10 years from about 1740 to 1750, there are roughly 80 or so cases, and several of them involve women, several of them involve women of color. And this is one of the most dramatic ones. So the first entry here in August is about the investigation into the death of Isabella's child, and it describes her as the servant to maybe Daniel Shatford of the city of New York, a merchant. And so she is indeed found guilty of committing this crime and is sentenced to the city jail. And then if you move forward one or two pages.
This is the historian's dream, to actually find out what happened to her.
So here are a few pages on, you see Isabella herself. So this is about a month later, and you hear the report. The jurors, upon their oaths, do say that the aforesaid Isabella, on Monday the 21st day of August now last past, was committed to the common jail of the said city of New York for murdering her bastard child, at which time she was very weak and low, and continued so until the 14th day of this present month of September, when she died in the jail aforesaid.
So 2 weeks after she's committed to jail, she's found dead. Now, we're not told why she died, but can we assume that she committed suicide?
Well, we can certainly surmise it. I mean, it's possible just this description of her as being low and sad could have been a cause of death. We know that suicide was often covered up in these reports, because if you committed suicide, you would not be entitled to burial in certain parts of the cemeteries. So yes, I think a suicide is quite likely. But I think this document, which is just quite amazing and also quite horrific, is also very typical of the types of documents in which you would find women of color in the records in the 18th century. Isabella finds herself in the historical record twice in these 2 pages in this document, and almost certainly nowhere else.
And Isabella, she's described to us as a mulatto. She's a house servant. She is the new mother of a child who's described to us as a bastard child. That is a child whose father is unknown, and presumably if she knew the father, she wasn't telling anybody. But we all know that it was quite common for servant girls in that period to be sexually abused by sometimes the houses in which they lived. So we begin to understand that, having been found guilty, she could well have taken her own life without, we don't know whether she had family to support her or whether you know, the family with which she lived helped her or not. There are still lots of holes in this.
That's right, more holes than answers, for sure, more questions than answers. And, you know, for historians, I mean, I think you're on the path toward a more holistic vision of her story. But often this is the type of framing that you can see women in this time period. You know, descriptions from a hostile witness, people not at their best, often in the moments where they're court involved and you know, being charged with crimes against society. And so as a historian, you have to balance that portrait, which is all the information you may have, to try to tell a sympathetic story. And that's really one of the main problematics for historians of women in the 18th century, a time when the vast majority of the historical record is lost, when very few, if any, documents created by everyday women would have survived or even been created in the first place. You have just a dire lack of sources is the first major problem.